Good morning and welcome to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I am the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish.
And I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. Welcome to the show. Today is a delightful Thursday morning.
Today's topic of the show, on the IRS Solution Attorney Show,
Darrin,
is actually why now.
You should have hung out. It would have been so much fun.
Why now is the best time to file your past due tax returns if you haven't filed in years.
We're almost late. Well, not quite late yet. It's April 13th.
And the filing deadline this year is April 18th. It's actually Tuesday.
We got 5 more days.
Monday is some sort of like holiday or something. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Oh, it might be the Easter holiday. It's the Easter holiday since Sunday is Easter and federal employees don't work on Sunday typically, so they get Monday off. And so we have 2 extra days, 3 extra days.
How did that happen?
Yeah, it's just one of those things. This year it's April 18th.
Okay, I get the Monday thing, but I don't know how Tuesday and Wednesday rolls into that. But
No, it's not Wednesday, it's Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's Tuesday.
I'm not looking at the calendar, so thanks for keeping me straight. Well, like Darrin said, this is the IRS Solution Attorney Show. He's your host, I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, we got a little sidetrack there, talking about radio politics.
We gotta have fun. You know, we can't just talk about IRS and tax stuff all the time and not have any fun.
Well, I agree with that.
All,
think about what I talk about
all
the
IRS stuff makes Darrin a very dull boy.
Here's the funny thing about that, okay? And it's true, I am a little bit more stressed than usual. And it's because of the filing deadline. Here's the phenomenon that blows my mind every year.
What does the filing deadline stress you out? You're an IRS attorney, not a CPA.
Exactly. Well, we do some current year returns, but here's the phenomenon that kind of does, flip me out a little bit. I represent primarily people who haven't filed a tax return in years, okay? 6 years, 10 years. My record is 45 years the guy hadn't filed, right? But right around this time of year, even the non-filers flip out.
People go, oh, I should file my return.
Yeah, the pressure, imagine they're a pressure cooker and the pressure just builds and builds and builds and eventually the lid pops off.
That pressure cooker's been brewing for a couple years.
And so I try to convince people to just, relax. This is going to be okay. I've done this a few times before.
It's just such a hot mess. When you think about some people that are your atypical client and they haven't filed for years, it's just still so... We talk about it all the time, yeah, no big deal, because you fix this all the time, but it's pretty anxiety-ridden for most people.
That's actually totally true. If you haven't filed for years and you're one of these people who actually has a soul and a conscience, and you're worried about it and you feel guilty about it, then it is a pressure-packed, anxiety-filled situation, and this is the time of year when it's the highest. Now, actually, here's another part that's interesting about the phenomenon is, on April 19th,
it gets worse?
No,
or it slows down?
It'll actually, all the steam will escape, and they'll, go back to, being less stressed about it.
The one day is not going to make a difference if the IRS sends a letter.
Well, okay, let's say the late filing fee is $500, give or take, right? And, but these are people who haven't filed a return in 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. So they're going to owe 6 figures. So what difference does the $500 make?
In the grand scheme of things, I don't think that matters.
Exactly, especially if the goal and the strategy is going to be we're going to file an offer of compromise, make a deal with the IRS, and wipe it out anyway. So let
me tell you how you can get us. So you can listen to us obviously here on 1010 AM. We're also on 103.1 FM, and if you have HD radio in your car, it's 99.5 HD number 2. And Facebook Live, so we love to stream.
Facebook Live,
podcast,
the IRS Solution Attorney podcast, and the IRS Solution Attorney app.
And if you have an IRS problem or you know someone that does, you really should call Darrin at 888-GET-MISH. What's that number?
That's 888-GET-MISH, 888-438-6474.
And so Christy, one of our Facebook Livers, is talking about how much she loves your voice, and she filed yesterday. Good job, Christy.
Congratulations, Christy. Christy's really cool. She's one of her side gigs is she's a Marilyn Monroe impersonator, and she's beautiful. So it works out great for her. So anyway, let's get back to the topic of the show and why I think that now is actually the best time to file past due tax returns.
Can I make one more point?
Yeah, sure.
So now is the right time to file the past due tax returns, but I just want to say, if you're going to hire Darrin, do what you're supposed to do. He can't fix it if you don't do anything. It's kind of like somebody coming to me going, yep, I want to buy a house. Yep, I need a loan, but I don't want to provide any returns. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go look at any properties. Okay. We could probably do it, but you're going to have to still sign some paperwork at some point and do your part. You have to show up. You can't just Say, here you go, here's some money, make it go away.
Okay, so the reason that
That'd be
Katrina
nice.
made that comment is that I was maybe venting just a tiny bit.
Well, I'm just presuming that most of the crazies come in around this time. I'm just saying they might.
I was venting just a tiny bit because there was a gentleman who hired me in April of 2015. Yeah, not
Probably
17,
2 years ago.
not 16, but April.
It was still April.
2015.
My guess it was pre-15.
He was it was actually.
See?
He was a chronic non-filer, hasn't filed a return in 10, 12 years, something like that. Paid me a fee, kind of a low fee, and we've been communicating with him regularly for 2 years now to try to get him to assist us in assisting him, and he just refuses to do so. Just needs more time, And I would just say, actually, call in if you have an opinion on this. What's the phone number? It's 888-404-1010, 888-404-1010. Is 2 years long enough to file a tax return?
I think that's a great idea, Darrin. I think we should open it up to the person listening and ask them, if you retained an attorney 2 years ago, and they asked you for some stuff, but you didn't do it, and now they're asking for a refund, what do you think? You think that's fair, even though there's multiple correspondents asking them to do their part? And
Yeah.
I know you would be willing to jump in and help out still, but they have to do their part.
And my thing is that I'm not doing him any service, this particular client. And this happens quite a bit. I mean, more than I'd like. Not a lot, but more than I'd like. I'm not doing that client or that prospect any service if I don't apply some pressure for them to do their part so that we can ultimately resolve the problem. All he's done is kick this can down the road another 2 years. He's not paying his taxes now. And it's not helping him to say, oh yeah, yes, you can have another 6 months, or you can have another year, or another 5 years.
Here's the thing, Darrin. It's kind of like a good coach, right? Like, you might not always like what they tell you to do, but a good coach will kick you in the you-know-what and make you do it.
If you have a personal trainer and he's like your favorite person in the world and you want to cuddle up with him,
Not a good trainer.
yeah, probably not the best trainer for you. You kind of want to hate the guy. I always hated my athletic coaches. I mean,
Yeah.
they were horrible.
I go to the gym and they're like, yeah, we're doing ropes. Oh, I don't want to do ropes. I don't care, you're doing ropes. All right, fine, I'll do ropes. All right, you're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney. We'll be back in a minute.
Welcome back to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I am the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish.
And I'm your co-host, Katrina May. Well, thank you for hanging around through the break. We appreciate that.
Anyway, today's show is all about why now is the best time to file your past due tax returns. Okay, so we're actually going to talk about why now is the best
We are.
time.
Let's do it.
So let's just go with some simple points first. If you're behind like on 1 year or maybe even 2 years, and ultimately the solution is going to be to full pay, let's say you think you're going to owe a couple grand or something.
So do you think the biggest reason why people don't file is because they don't have the money to pay, or they're not organized enough to get everything to the account to file?
That's
what do you think the
interesting.
number one...
There's two camps. Number one camp is I'm self-employed, I don't have any records, and this is just too overwhelming. And when I think about it, I can get, my heart races, and I just can't deal with it. And so I get a fair number of people who have, I'm not judging, but they have emotional problems wrapped around doing the taxes. And for those people, what we have to do is get them caught up, and then we have to just devise some simple system for them so that they don't have to think about it too much. And it's surprisingly easy to do that, to set that up. But then the second...
like a bookkeeper.
Yeah, or you can use QuickBooks Online, and you can, attach it to your bank account, and then somebody just has to look at it at the end of the year and sort of make sure everything's categorized.
And in this day and age, everything's so automatic. Like, everything can pull over from your bank statements. It's pretty simple. Like, it ends up memorizing transactions and that sort of stuff.
Short aside, if you use a lot of cash in your business and you have no records, well, good luck
That's
with
hard.
that. I don't think you should
You
do
need
that.
a bookkeeper.
Yeah, you're going to need a bookkeeper, and you're going to need to start keeping those receipts. But then the second camp of people are the people who just are like, I just know I'm going to owe, and so I can't deal with
They
it
don't wanna do
now,
either
and
one.
I'll wait until I have money enough to pay, and then I'll deal with it then. And
Probably the self-employed crowd.
not always. Sometimes it's an early withdrawal from retirement accounts and things like that. One of my favorite / non-favorite kind of cases is the person who's a wage earner and decided somewhere along the line they're going to go ahead and claim, exempt on their W-4 or 99 or something. I had a case recently that I consulted on. The person somehow wrote exempt on their W-4 and also claimed to be exempt of all Social Security withholding as well. Not just the income tax, but the Social Security withholding as well. And
I guess it's possible.
the employer / payroll company, I can't remember which, went along with that. And so this guy was working at this job for like 2 or 3 years with no Social Security withholding. Not to mention no tax withholding, but no Social Security withholding as well. So we wanted to know how to fix that, and we muddled through somehow. But so those,
Good to know.
and so I was thinking about this on the way to work today, that the human race would be better off if we all just focus on improvement. That one word just kept coming into my head. It was improvement. If we all just focused on improving any aspect of our lives, let alone all of them.
Improving and learning.
Just one aspect. If we all just focus on improvement in one aspect of our lives, society and the world in general would be better off. I know that's kind of deep for the show today.
No, but it's pretty spot on.
If you do have missing tax returns, and it's kind of overwhelming, what's the first step? Well, the first step is to commit to resolving the problem. Just decide.
Time block.
I'm going to deal with this. I'm just going to deal with this one way or the other. Either you're going to do it yourself, which is probably not ever going to happen, or I'm going to go seek out some help and get some help getting it done. I was talking to a really high C-level kind of guy yesterday, really good earner, kind of well-known, and...
Explain what you mean when you say high C-level earner.
Okay, so like a CEO of a company, okay, big company, comes to me because he has this problem. The problem is he hasn't filed tax returns in years, okay? Again, it's April, so this kind of thing is really pretty common. And he went through all of the, hey, this is all my responsibility, I take responsibility, that kind of thing. And I like to hear that. That's good, because ultimately you are responsible if you're a non-filer. It's on you. You can't delegate that responsibility. It's on you if you haven't filed. But then the more he talked, the more I was like, okay, what we have to do is we have to get these old returns done, and then we have to set up some kind of simple system so that you don't have to worry about this. When you're earning $500,000 a year or something, really, is that the best use of your time to be worried about keeping every receipt and making sure every receipt goes in the QuickBooks and that kind of thing?
And the reality of it is he probably has a secretary that could help with that stuff?
Yeah, except for neither one, and she was there in the room with us, and, great gal and all that, and certainly willing to help. But the problem is neither one of them really had a clue how to set up the rudimentary system, and so that's why I'm hoping I get engaged in that case, because believe it or not, I'm more interested in the improvement of his life than I am in the fee. Fixing
the problem versus just taking the money for the solution.
Because ultimately, there's enough money in the world, in my opinion, okay? I believe in abundance. I think that there's plenty if you just apply yourself. So for me, at this stage of my life and career, it's not about the fee as much as it is in the self-satisfaction that I know that I helped another person with a big problem in their life.
You're one of the only businesses I know that does not like repeat business.
Yeah, I'll take it, but it's
Which is a little, it's cliche, because everybody wants repeat business.
Yeah, I'll take it, but I don't feel great if I've helped somebody through a big life problem. They owed $200,000 to the IRS, and I get it settled, and then they come back 3 years later, and it's like, yeah, I did it again. I actually have one right now, and I like the guy a lot, but it's a little disappointing. It's like, we didn't talk about this enough. When really what it was is he just hadn't committed.
Create a system, and then sell that system, especially if they're a repeat customer, to get them on track.
Well, that's a great plan.
Because you just said they don't have the rudimentary system.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what they need.
Yeah, that's true.
Isn't that what entrepreneurship is? There's a gap in the market somewhere, and somebody fills that gap?
Yeah, actually, I call it need, but yeah,
I'm sorry, yes.
Identify.
I ramble, and I know what I'm saying. It didn't come out right, but that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, so let's get back to what we're talking about here. Now is the best time, because if you have a couple of years that are unfiled or whatever, you need to get them done so that you can avoid additional interest and penalties. You just need to calculate the number. What's the number? And then you need to try and deal with the situation. If if it's going to be full pay, just write a check and pay it off. Well, that's one thing. It'll minimize the cost. If the other is, well, I'm going to enter into an installment agreement, a payment plan, well, then you're going to want to do that, because, again, you're going to minimize interest and penalties by entering into the installment agreement in an early side of the process. The next thing would be...
What's crazy to me, Darrin, I think we should bring this up because I don't think we talk about it enough. And I think you and I, the last time we discussed this, you said they were self-employed, or at one point they owed tax money, so they just never filed tax returns again. And then it's like, it might be 10, 15, 20 years later, and they may have been a W-2 wage earner for years, and they're missing all those refunds.
Yeah, I was going to save this story for a little bit later in the show, but there was a gentleman who came in yesterday.
See, I didn't hijack your story.
Beautiful guy, wonderful guy. Been a wage earner for the last, his whole life. Okay, and I forget why he didn't file a tax return.
Something silly.
I forget why he didn't. It was like he was going to owe a little bit of money. It was like your scenario. He was going to owe just a little bit of money, and he didn't file, and he's deathly afraid of the IRS, like bad. And so he came.
Yeah, they actually would owe him money if he.
And he came in and we devised a plan, and we're going to work together to get this thing resolved really quickly too, I believe. And the saddest thing is, I know this case when this particular gentleman's been going on for 9 years, is that he's been worried about it and anxious, severely anxious, for 9 years.
For a decade.
9 years out of your life. I mean, listen, folks, we only get, 60, 70, 80 years. That's it. So to waste almost 10 of those years on worrying about the IRS.
George, and you drink a lot of tequila, it might not even be that long. Average.
Okay.
Average.
Well, I don't know. I have my qualms about 11 to 9. So another thing that people don't realize about why now is the best time to file your tax return, especially now, April 13th, okay?
Oh, you're going to have to
I did not do that.
Why.
I did not do that on purpose.
It was just timing. You're going to have to find out after the break. So when we come back...
This is a big one, too.
Darren's going to tell you, so stick around, why right now is the opportune time to get those tax returns filed. You can get Darrin at his off-air number at 888-GET-MISH. Again, that number is 888-GET-MISH.
888-438-6474.
And you're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. That's Mr. Darrin Mish over there, and I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. Pat George back there producing the show, and we're streaming on Facebook. You can catch Darrin on Twitter at Darrin_Mish, and on Facebook and all across the web. Catch the podcast if you miss any part of the show at Get IRS Help. We'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome back to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I am the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish.
And I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. Thanks for hanging with us through the break. We're glad you're back. And
today's show is all about why now is the best time to file your past due tax returns. And before the break, I kind of accidentally did a little teaser on what I think the best reason is, and that is that if you have a refund coming to you, if you don't file that return within 3 years, then you don't get the refund, and you don't even get credit or an offset for that refund if you owe back taxes.
Which is exactly what we were talking about with the person that didn't file a tax return 15 years ago because they owed a small balance, and now they've been missing out on all these refunds, and now they can't get them.
And over the years, I've seen some really high earners that kind of fell into that trap where it was like too much to deal with, that they're too busy or whatever, and some of them had $15,000 refunds that they just forfeited because...
Don't you wish you could just go get them? Like, I would just want to go get those people. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, we need to gather them up. We need to gather them up and, like, hug them and fix them. But, yeah, it's just one of those things. That's one of the reasons why we do the show and we do this kind of outreach, just so that you know that if you are more than 3 years late on a refund return, that you don't get the refund and you don't even get credit for the refund.
Share this show because you likely know someone at your job that you don't even know they haven't filed tax returns, and if you casually mention that, you could be doing them a favor because they could be missing out on all their refunds.
And so with the tax, filing deadline coming up, then you're going to need to file that within, before the deadline, because if you don't, you're going to forfeit that refund or the credit for that refund if you have a balance due. So it's kind of sad to me. Now that being said, I've seen lots of mistakes over the years what the IRS does. Accidentally cut a check on a refund that's more than 3 years old. I've seen them do that. I've seen them offset it, against an existing debt, but it's not something that you can count on. And I believe that if they inadvertently issue you that refund check, they could come back for that check with interest.
What about with this day and age where they do the automatic deposit? Can they swoop back in and take it? No, they can't.
That's a good question. I don't think they can, because it's not the same to deposit money. It's not the same as to debit money, thank goodness, right? But,
I mean, most people think that they can just swoop in and take it, I would imagine, but I don't think they can.
Now, there's another reason why you should file your past due tax return now, and it's related to the refund issue, and that is if you're entitled to an earned income credit. So you're very low income, maybe you have some kids, and there are people who get the earned income tax credit that actually get more money back in a form of a refund than they ever paid in. It's basically federal assistance, and if you're missing tax returns in your past, in the recent past, say in the last 6 years, and you file an earned income credit, refund kind of return, you're not going to get that refund if you have some missing returns. So you're going to want to make sure to get caught up. The IRS, I've said this time and again on the show, the IRS is more concerned about getting you, the taxpayer, back into the system than they are in collecting the money that you didn't pay for the past unfiled tax returns. Now, they are concerned about getting the past due money. They are, okay? But they're more concerned.
Only so far back.
Yeah, they're more concerned with you getting back into the system so that you do not perpetuate that
What's that
behavior.
statute of limitations again, Darren, if they haven't collected the money and they owe it? How long is that?
The statute of limitations for collection of past due income tax is 10 years from the date of the assessment of the tax. Okay,
Isn't
so
that
was a bunch of,
interesting that they can go back 10 years for owed money, yet if they owe you money, it's only 3? Isn't that interesting?
yeah, well, that's how Congress works, you know.
I know, I'm just saying.
In the 80s, the statute of limitations for collection was only 6 years, and I'm not really sure how it came about, but it got extended to 10 years. 6 years.
Of course it did.
Well, but then on the other flip side of that coin, I think it's kind of cool that there's a statute of limitations for
Yes.
collection at all.
There should be, yes.
Most people don't know
But
that.
I think the same should apply for a refund. That's all I'm saying. Like, if it's good that way, it should be good the other way. That's all.
Okay, so here's the deal. Call your congressman and your senators and pitch the idea.
Yes.
You know,
I
if
think we
there's
should.
tax reform coming up, that'd be a great place to put it.
Who's the go-to person? Do you know for that?
Yeah, probably Rand Paul would probably be my choice for, but he's a Kentucky senator, he's not a Florida senator.
Okay.
Bill Nelson, okay, whatever. Marco Rubio would be decent. The only reason I said whatever about Bill Nelson is he's Democratic. He's not going to be down with any kind of tax reform except for to raise taxes.
I think everybody generally likes Rubio, regardless of what your political party is. Most people like Rubio.
Or as Donald
like
Trump
his
calls him,
ideas.
Little Marco.
Yeah, well, I like him. I don't follow politics very closely, but I have been following him for a long time and his career, and I like him. Like, his ideas are just good.
He does seem to be a likable fellow.
He is.
Although-
He's not your average politician.
Do you remember the year that he did the response to the State of the Union address, and he had a bottle of water, and he got really, really thirsty?
No.
He got really thirsty a few minutes into his response. He was super stressed, and he started drinking water during this speech. It was really kind of funny. But
Well,
he wasn't
he's
just drinking
human.
water; he was like guzzling the water.
Well, it's probably better than him choking up and coughing everywhere.
Yeah,
so,
that's probably true.
You know.
So the next reason why now is the best time to file your past due tax returns would be, to protect your Social Security benefits.
The ones that might not even be there, those benefits?
Well, they're there now.
They're
So
there now.
Here's
If
what
you're
I
Pat's
do.
age, you might get them, but if you're my age, you might not.
There's 2 reasons why I make this comment about the Social Security benefits. Number 1, if you're self-employed and you're not filing tax returns, then they're not giving you credit for the money that you're paying into the Social Security system, and so ultimately your Social Security check will be smaller
For sure.
than if you had been paying your taxes and filing your returns and whatnot.
It's supposed to be like a forced retirement savings, isn't it? It's not a very good one, but that's the idea.
Yeah, that was the idea back in the 30s. Short segue, short aside about that. It was when Social Security was passed, the average lifespan was like 62. And so to offer the benefits at age 62, really what the politicians were thinking is, well, most people will be on Social Security for like a year or 2, and we'll basically profit from this whole deal.
I'm sure that's how it started.
And now with improving medicine and healthcare and all that, I think the average lifespan in America is around 76 or so.
Yeah.
And so your average person's on Social Security like 11 to
Plus,
15 years.
don't forget disability. People are going earlier than expected. Like,
For
none
sure.
of that was around back then.
Yeah. So now that's why Social Security's really having problems, is because the math just
It
doesn't
was
work.
never revamped.
Yeah, the math just doesn't work, and they need to fix it, and hopefully it will get fixed so that people of the younger generation actually have it. Because if it continues down the road that we're on, it's not going to be there.
You know, and if you listen to Dave Ramsey, it's just not. It's not going to be enough to live on.
Oh, well, absolutely not. I mean, yeah.
It's not.
And there are people, unfortunately, who are living on it, and it's sad because...
Yeah, and I think it's going to get smaller, and that's why I say that.
So what will eventually happen is one of 2 things with regard to Social Security. Either they will move the minimum retirement age up, which would pretty much fix the problem.
But
Or-
that's so. Think about how
I know,
crappy that
I
is.
know.
Like, you pay in all these years and then you never get $1 from it. It's just not right.
So the second option is probably worse, and what they'll do is they'll means test it, which basically means you'll get less if you make more. And that's even more unfair to me than pushing back the
It is
retirement age.
unfair, but on the same token, it really pushes people to be self-accountable and save more and plan better. At least that
Okay.
it should.
Okay. So another reason why you want to file your past due tax returns is because you're going to have a lot of trouble obtaining loans, specifically real estate loans. And the
Oh,
gentleman,
without a doubt.
the gentleman that came in yesterday, his motivation was he was supposed to close on a new house
I said,
tomorrow.
not doing it.
And when they got to the point in the underwriting where they're like, okay, so we need to see your tax returns, or we need you to fill out the 4506T to get your transcripts, he was like frozen, deer in headlights.
Freaked out.
Row. I haven't filed a tax return in a while. I don't think he told them that, but.
Well, here's the dealio. Like, back in the day, pre-housing collapse, people could just give tax returns and they would not verify them. Unless you were in like Miami-Dade or Broward County where the fraud rate is so high in the state, they would verify those. And still in many other parts of the country, you know, they're not considered a high fraud area. So they'll have them sign a 4506T in the event of a random audit, but they're definitely not pulling tax transcripts in advance.
So for
But
this,
Florida, they are.
yeah, so for the whole state.
The whole state, they are. The whole state.
That's great. You know.
And that's, I mean, my background's mortgage, so I remember it never used to be at all. Then it was Miami-Dade, Broward County. And then it slowly just moved its way up the state, and they said, nope, there's just too much fraud. I mean...
So what we're going to do for that particular gentleman is we're going to go ahead and get his transcripts from the IRS so that we can get the wage and income information for the missing years. He actually had his W-2s with him in a folder, and then he says, well, don't you want this? I said, nope.
So he was a wage earner?
Yeah, he's a wage earner. I said, nope, I don't want the W-2s from you, no offense.
He should be fine, you just got to file his stuff.
I'm going to get your information from the government so that it all matches, and then we're going to prepare your returns, we're going to file them. And we still have a target closing on April 30th. I don't know. I mean, we can get our part done. I don't know if that'll still happen, but what I really liked about this gentleman was his motivation level was very high.
Well, yeah, he sees his eye is on the prize. He's
Yeah.
getting his house.
And this is the last piece in a whole bunch of parts of his life that were just kind of a mess, and you know the credit was not good and all that.
So, speaking of the 4506T, I should just mention this because, like, for example, remember I told you I did my taxes. I was done pretty early. Then I realized my accountant did not include my miles, which are crazy, like 3,000 miles a month. We got missed. So we added that back in, and it, of course, made the return better. But there's people that actually say get that first copy of the return and then don't actually save the second copy for some reason. Then they apply for a loan. And let me tell you something. If those numbers do not match, even by $2, they will freak out like you're committing fraud. Just saying. Just so you know.
$2 worth of fraud.
It's
in breaking
insane.
news today, there was $2 worth of fraud.
But so to my point, if the tax returns do not match, they do not like that.
No.
So can the layperson get their tax transcript?
Sure.
They could.
There's actually an online way to get it. I think it works. As of yesterday, it was working. You can just Google get transcripts IRS, and the link will come up to the page, and you can enter in your personal information into this website, including your adjusted gross income for last year or the year before, and it will verify who you are, and you can obtain your transcripts there. Now, here's the kind of the trick is, especially in the kind of transcripts that I use, can you read them? Can you even understand what's going on?
Likely not.
So,
but you could make sure that they at least match what you're giving your lender so that you don't have any
oh, for sure. On the wage and income, you can check those if you need to do returns. Or, like you said, you could match the tax return transcript to a specific kind of transcript so that you can make sure that the lender has the same version that you have. I agree with that, by the way, that if you've had modifications or versions of a tax return, keep the last one. That's it.
And here's the thing, I think it's something that you just don't even think about. Like, I would, unless I'm like knee deep in this like I am, I wouldn't think about that. I would just keep rolling. It would not be something I would think about. Just like you said, hey, Katrina, it was everyone, the person listening, you should be reviewing your tax returns. And what did I tell you? I'm like, Darrin, I still don't really review the tax returns. Like, I just give the tax guy everything and they file it. Anyway.
Well, you can't delegate that responsibility.
I know. You're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. We'll be back in just a minute. Stick around.
The topic of the show today is why now is the best time ever to file your past due tax returns, and we're running out of time here in the last segment, and I have a great train wreck of the week this week. So
moving right along.
The one thing, or I would say this is really high on the list, and that is if you don't file your tax returns, the IRS will eventually do that for you, and that is not a pretty sight at all.
We talked about that before, so it's going to be whatever income they have with no deductions.
Yeah, what it's called is a substitute for return, or an SFR for short. So when the IRS does a substitute for return, what they do is they take that wage and income information that we were talking about on the transcripts, they just take that and they add up all the income and they multiply it by your tax rate, and that equals your tax bill plus penalties and interest, significant penalties and interest. You get no exemptions, no deductions. You don't get to claim your kids. You don't get to claim your home interest. You get to claim nothing. And so what happens? That SFR assessment is huge. It's huge.
I'm sure it is.
And so the reason that that's a bad thing is then what happens is
penalties, interest.
Since the tax is assessed, then they have a strong tendency to come looking for their money. And so that leads to liens.
Like specifically when they file a substitute for return?
Yeah, then they're coming looking for their money. And so that means they're going to file liens, they're going to do do levies, they're going to seize your bank account, they're going to seize your wages. Not in every case, but this is very common. And so you're going to want to file those returns.
Is that why they file? Is there a threshold?
It's usually a lot of money. The computer somehow can tell if it's going to be a refund. You're not going to see a substitute for return. Period. Okay, it sort of makes sense. And if the computer kind of does the math and it's not going to be real significant, and there's not another long track record of non-compliance, they're probably not going to do the SFR. But usually we see really significant SFRs. Now here's some good news. Okay, if the IRS prepares an SFR, a substitute for return, the taxpayer can go back and file an original return reflecting less tax and can mitigate or abate all that extra tax penalties and interest.
I would hope so.
But still suboptimal to let the IRS do the substitute for return. There's lots of reasons for that. One of the primary reasons is the case law right now pretty much says that if there was a substitute for return prepared, then that is never going to be dischargeable in a bankruptcy if you have to go down the bankruptcy route.
Really?
So, yeah, there's a long record, there's a long history of bad decisions, in my opinion, relating to that. Lots of courts have said, well, once an SFR, always an SFR. And so what we used to do in the past, before these cases came out, is we would have SFR assessments, and then we would file original returns, and then we would wait 2 years, and then we would bankrupt the whole thing.
Makes sense.
And that's probably why the courts ultimately changed.
There's always a workaround, isn't there?
Not always, but yeah, generally speaking, if you're good at this, there's a workaround. So that is the indication that we are ready for the IRS training record of the week. This is the segment of the show where I get to tell a story about how somebody came into the office and their situation was something of a train wreck, and ultimately we only talk about the happy endings here.
That's right. Well, we've talked about other stuff too.
We've had a couple Saturdays.
Because they're not always perfect, but they're better.
So this story is so good, it's almost unbelievable, but I can assure you that it's true. So I was working with this gentleman who was in the insurance business, I believe, and I was working with him for like a long time. I'd say 3 to 5 years, and it was one of these guys. Great guy, by the way. Love this guy. And he actually agreed to be a guest on the show at some point in the future.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Great guy,
I would love to have one of your people on as a guest.
He was one of these guys that he just had to be drugged through the process. It just went on and on and on and on. And some of it was probably our fault, and a lot of it was probably his fault. But it just went on for a lot of years. And he's been resolved for a couple of years now, and I saw him in the lobby this week or last week. And when I think of him and his name, I think, oh, we got a great result. But honestly, I couldn't remember what had happened. So I went out to shake his hand and say hello, because I only see him once a year now. And we have a lot in common and stuff. And I said, hey, I know you got a great result, but can you remind me what happened? Because every time I see this guy once a year, he's like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
He's over the moon.
So I said, I know you got a great result, I just can't remember what it is. And he says, well, ultimately I owed $374,000. And you convinced me to file an offer in compromise. We offered $250, and it came back accepted. And so I got a big smile last week, and I kind of laughed. And I said,
no wonder I'm your BFF.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty darn good result. So he also reminded me that at one point in the process, he was asking lots of questions, and I did remember that. It was like question, 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 question. And so some clients want to be educated on like how to do the job that I'm doing. They don't want the solution. They want the education as well as the solution. And he reminded me that at one point in the show, or the representation, I told him,
look, the representation.
Look, man, I don't sell insurance. So let me do what I do every day, and it'll work out better. And he said he had an epiphany. He looked at me and he goes, okay, you're right. I'll just let you do your thing. And then he got that killer result. So that's the story for today. I mean, he got just an incredible result. And you know what? Now, as a result of getting that monkey off his back, life's good. He's doing great. He got his life back. And that's what it's really all about.
And how long was it before he actually, how long was he in the hole, didn't file?
Oh, I don't remember, but this probably went on 10, 15 years.
Atypical, I suppose.
And, his credit was ruined. He had liens and all kinds of stuff. And we filed the offer in compromise. The IRS accepted it, and we moved right along. All
right, so if you or someone you know need some help like that, or need some help trying to figure it out, you can get Darrin at 888-GET-MISH.
That's 888-438-6474.
And you can also find him on Facebook and Twitter across the web at Darrin_Mish on Twitter. He's on Facebook.
You can go to the Facebook page at the IRS Solution Attorney. You can download our podcast or our app, also called the IRS Solution Attorney.
And we will be back the same time, same place next week. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for listening to Money Talk 1010. And for this week,
We're out.